Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting for Wednesday, February the 26th. It's great to see council in person. We've had inclement weather the last two council meetings, so it's nice to be back in person for this evening's meeting. I'd like to let everyone know that this meeting is being audio, video recorded, and live streamed on the Town of Innisfil's YouTube channel and shall form part of the record, which will be retained in accordance with the town's retention bylaw. And for more information on that bylaw, you can contact the clerk's office. I'd also like to offer regrets from Councillor Saunders, who could not be here this evening, and acknowledge members of council in our pink because it's anti-bullying day here in the town of Innisfil and throughout Canada. I'd now ask Councillor Constantine, please, to deliver our land acknowledgement.
The town of Innisfil acknowledges that Innisfil is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich indigenous histories. The town also acknowledges that this land is the traditional territories of the first people of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe people of Beausoleil First Nation, Chippewa of Rama First Nation, and Chippewa of Georgina Island First Nation, and we thank them for a generation of stewardship. This meeting place is still the home to many indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today were dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation, respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuits.
Thank you, Councillor Constantine. Item number 2 is open forum, and we've had nobody register for open forum this evening, Madam Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to item 3, which is approval of the agenda. We've got a bit of agenda repair going on there, just moving a few things around. We've had our presentation from Paws and Boots, who have postponed. They'd like to do that on another evening. And you can see the items on the screen that have been added, and item number 7 will be considered in advance of presentations tonight. So with that, could I ask for a mover and a seconder to please approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Drodge and seconded by Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next, I'll ask if there's any disclosures of pecuniary or conflict of interest on any item in tonight's agenda. Seeing none, if one becomes apparent to you during the meeting, you can let us know at that time. So now we'll move to item 7. I'll turn it over to CAO Gershow.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dolan, and good evening, members of council, members of the community. Tonight is a night for some celebration, so it is really my pleasure to be standing before you today to begin with a bit of discussion about the King Charles III Coronation Medal. As you may be aware, the Coronation Medal commemorates the coronation of His Majesty King Charles III as King of Canada. And this is a nationwide recognition. And the medal is awarded to, and I'm quoting, people who have made a significant contribution to Canada or to a particular province, territory, region, or community of Canada, or have made an outstanding achievement abroad that brings credit to Canada. And so across our nation, in total, 30,000 of these medals will be awarded, including to members of our armed forces. And, you know, given the intention and the purpose of that medal, as residents of Innisfil, I think we should all be quite grateful that a significant number of members of our community have been awarded this very recognition. The honorees have been nominated by different leaders and organizations and have received their medals on different occasions. So for example, in this very room on February 18th, a very, very stormy winter night, our Member of Parliament, John Brassard, hosted a ceremony where 23 members of the Barrie and Innisfil communities were awarded their medals. And I'd like to note that a video of that entire ceremony is available on the town's YouTube page. As well, on January 28th, our member of Provincial Parliament, Andrea Kanjan, awarded medals to several additional Barrie and Innisfil residents. And so I want to acknowledge that among the recipients of these medals are two of our current members of council, both Mayor Dolan and Councillor Jennifer Richardson. Congratulations. And I'd like to acknowledge we have other medal recipients behind me in the audience tonight. We're very grateful that you're here. Congratulations to you as well. So we just wanted to take a moment to record in a photographic way the recipients of our medals from council, as well as our chief of the South Simcoe Police Service, Chief John Van Dyke, who's here with us tonight. So at this point, I'd like to just call upon Councillor Richardson, Mayor Dolan, and the chief to come up for a photograph. I think we have someone ready to do that. Come on down. Excellent. Thank you so much. And I will say on behalf of all town staff, we truly are grateful for all those who serve our communities in different ways and who've been honored with this very special recognition. And while I'm up here, and since we are in the spirit of recognizing public service, there's one individual who I'd like to recognize again. And so as you may know, 2024 marked Lynn Dolan's 30th year of service on the Town of Innisfil Council. And we've been waiting for just the right moment to celebrate that amazing accomplishment at a council meeting. And so tonight seemed like a great fit to do that. So I'd like to just spend a few minutes sharing a few remarks. I'd like to share that kind of internally at the Town of Innisfil and with some friends of the Town of Innisfil family, we've created a bit of a digital thank you card for Mayor Dolan. And I want to share what I wrote on that thank you card, because I think it fits actually very well with the sentiments that many, many others have expressed. And so I say, I've said it before, but I will say it again, to stick with anything in life for 30 years is pretty amazing, but to do so in the public service is doubly special. And Lynn, as you well know, serving as an elected official can be challenging, frustrating, and sometimes a thankless job. And yet, you managed to pull it off with humility, good humor, and determination. And I want to say, as a resident of Innisfil, I truly appreciate the obvious care and compassion that you have for this community. You've consistently demonstrated that you want to make Innisfil a better place, and I think you've made tremendous progress in that regard over the years. Your depth of knowledge about Innisfil serves us all so well, but I also think it's important to acknowledge how much you've contributed to the municipal sector in Ontario more broadly, especially through your service through the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and the many other committees and organizations that you've served on. You've brought a very important perspective from a small urban municipality, and you've definitely helped Innisfil to punch above its weight when it comes to regional and provincial matters. As the CAO of the Town of Innisfil, I'm very happy to say what a pleasure it has been working with you for the past 3.5 years. I tell people all the time how lucky I am to work with you as my mayor. I think you run a great council meeting, and I see the leadership and the spirit of collegiality that you foster consistently with your council colleagues, and I think that's very important. And I think what also sets you apart is the genuine gratitude that you express for all of the work that town staff do to serve the community every day. Your integrity and your leadership have made you an inspiration and a role model to many. So from me and from all of us, thank you so much for your many years of dedicated public service. You have made a lasting and positive difference in Innisfil and beyond. So. So we have some tokens of our appreciation, Mayor Dolan, which I am very, very pleased to share with you. So the first is a plaque with some very cool photos of Lynn Dolan over the years. I think there's some great ones here. You'll find it very special. And on the back of this is a quote from someone who I know inspired you, another mayor named Hazel McCallion. And the quote reads, "I'd like to be remembered by what I've been able to accomplish so that other young women will look at me and say, well, maybe I can do it as well." So we're very pleased and proud to present this to you. And I'd also like to acknowledge I have a certificate of congratulations from the Innisfil Community Church, also recognizing your 30 years of service to the community. Thank you so much for bringing that tonight. And I think we even have your family here with some flowers to present to you. So Lynn, come on down. So with all of that positivity now in play, we can return to our regularly scheduled council meeting. Back to you, Mayor Dolan.
Wow. Where's Karen? Karen, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I had no idea that any of this, I knew we were getting our picture taken for the King's Coronation Medal, and that was it. But to have all of you here, thank you so much for coming tonight. Former members of council who I served with are here tonight. Dear, dear longtime friends, and of course my granddaughter and my daughter and my son-in-law. And I'm guessing on that phone are my parents. Hi, Mom and Dad. And Boris and Richard and everybody, thank you so much. Marvin, thank you so much for coming. It means a lot for you to come here tonight. And to all of staff, you know, you make it happen. We sit here and take all the credit, but you guys make it happen. So thank you so much. And now let's get back to business. Whew, thank you. I'll give just a moment. If people want to leave, don't feel you've got to stay for the whole meeting, honestly. I won't forgive you for leaving. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chief. And I also just wanted to acknowledge Fire Chief Brent Thomas, who also received the King Coronation Medal from the City of Orillia, where he served prior to joining us. So congratulations to you too, Brent. So I have no idea where I am now. Oh yes, presentations. So under presentations, our first presentation this evening is item 6.1, and that is our Uber update. And we thank Uber for being here very much, and we're going to learn about Innisfil Transit and our partnership with Uber. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's a tough act to follow. Mayor Dolan, I want to say just before I start, I think I echo so much of the sentiment that was shared by council and all your colleagues. My family recently moved here, and when I told them I was coming to present in front of council, all they could talk about was, have you met the mayor? Do you we met her and she's amazing. So all of that is to say your impact is immediate, and because you care so much, that leaves such a lasting impression. So congratulations on 30 years of service. That's an incredible achievement. So I won't make you cry the way that they did. So, okay, excellent. So, through you, Madam Chair, good evening, Mayor Dolan, council, staff, and Innisfil community members. I'd like to begin by extending my sincere thanks to you, Mayor Dolan, and the Innisfil Town Council for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Matthew D. Toronto, and I manage public transit partnerships in Canada for Uber Transit. I'd also like to express my gratitude to Andrea Lee and Brandon Correa and the entire Innisfil planning and policy team for their continued dedication and collaboration to this partnership. They have built a shining example of innovation in public transportation, one that's recognized across the country. This council took a bold step more than 8 years ago by rethinking public transportation, and the results speak for themselves. Innisfil Transit provides residents, both lifelong and new, with fast, reliable, and safe transportation right at their doorstep. Uber is incredibly proud to partner with the town of Innisfil, working together to create a more connected, a less congested, and fully integrated transportation network. Innisfil's bold approach to transit didn't happen overnight. It was the result of forward-thinking leadership and a willingness to challenge the status quo. As I mentioned earlier, this partnership is now entering its eighth year, and it all started because Innisfil dared to ask a simple but powerful question: what is possible? The answer, guided by the 2015 Transit Feasibility Study, was a forward-thinking, technology-driven transit solution, one that residents of Innisfil have come to know and rely on today. The journey to over 700,000 trips was not without its challenges. Together, Innisfil and Uber built a resilient driver network to ensure reliable service, developed specialized programs to meet residents' evolving needs, and in the face of a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, you all acted quickly, pivoting to individual trips to keep your community members moving safely while protecting the town's budget. Looking ahead, Uber remains fully committed to supporting Innisfil Transit. As the town embarks on its 10-year transit master plan, we look forward to being a collaborative partner. And what makes Innisfil's story truly remarkable isn't just the success of the service, it's the town's bold approach to innovation. The phone call that was made by Innisfil to the local Uber office in Toronto more than 8 years ago sparked something within Uber. It inspired us to think differently about how we could be a better partner to our cities and the communities that we serve. And as a result, today, Uber Transit now partners with over 80 public transit agencies across the US and Canada. So Innisfil's bold question resulted in a ripple effect that is bringing this model to the world. Dubbed the Innisfil Transit Model, municipalities across North America have started similar services. From Marysville, Ohio to Kyle, Texas, cities continue to look at Innisfil as their North Star. But of course, innovation isn't enough. It's the results that truly matter. Innisfil's bold approach isn't just about inspiring other cities, it's delivering real, measurable success. And for Innisfil, these results have been measured by your residents. With an average wait time of just over 4.5 minutes, which rivals some big cities in Canada, and with an average driver rating of 4.9 stars, it's clear that this community values and relies on Innisfil Transit. The excerpts on the screen highlight how much this service has become a part of daily life, helping residents get to work, explore new job opportunities, access important community spaces, or just connect with friends on a night out. And it's not just about getting around, it's also about creating new economic opportunities, whether by reducing transportation barriers or giving residents a flexible way to earn extra income. Beyond convenience, Innisfil Transit is also shaping how people think about vehicle ownership. I'm reminded of a story that Mayor Dolan shared with us when we visited last in October, and she spoke about a family who new to Innisfil, who, because of Innisfil Transit, was considering downsizing the number of vehicles that they owned. That's the kind of impact that goes beyond transit. It's changing the way how people live, work, and move in this community. Stories like these show just how deeply Innisfil Transit is woven into the fabric of this community. Oh, there's 2 pages here. But your success is not just about average wait times and driver ratings. It's about continuous improvement through listening, adapting, and delivering real results in collaboration. Together with Andrea and Brendan's teams, and guided by community feedback, we've tackled key challenges outlined in the council report that you'll see this evening, including addressing capacity constraints through a youth-based voucher pilot, helping families with multiple children and teens, enhancing transit hub pickups and drop-offs to improve accessibility and convenience, and exploring innovations in Uber's technology and working closely with Innisfil to pave a way for future use of products like UberX Share. As we look ahead, Innisfil serves as proof that when cities embrace bold ideas and strong partnerships, transformative change is possible. Innisfil has set a new benchmark for what modern public transportation can look like. This program isn't just a success story, it's a model that continues to evolve and inspire. So as I conclude my remarks, I'd like to leave you all with a little bit of a personal story that truly attests to Innisfil Transit's impact, because this is truly a full circle moment for me. As I'd mentioned, my family it lives in Innisfil, and they moved here about 3 years ago from Richmond Hill. And it was a big change. My siblings, I have 2 younger sisters, my siblings had a much greater distance to travel to see many of their friends and loved ones who live in Toronto and vice versa. I've seen firsthand how Innisfil Transit has enabled my siblings and their loved ones to stay connected by providing a worry-free transit option from Barrie South Go. So this isn't just a transit service, it's a lifeline that keeps people connected to their jobs, their loved ones, and their community. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Matt. Really appreciate that. If you want to maybe stick around in case there's any questions or comments, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Members of council, questions or comments for Matt? Go ahead. Councillor, yeah, if you want to stay up at the podium, thank you so much. Then people who are watching online can hear you as well. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to acknowledge some of the councillors that were on council when that decision was made, and I want to thank those that are sitting in the audience for being the decision makers and making this happen. And as councillors, we kind of get the limelight now, and we're very appreciative of that. In your report, you speak about new technologies that are always changing and coming along. Can you expand on that a little bit to give us an idea of where transit or in the automotive world, where we're going to be in the next little while?
Yeah, of course. So something that we're working closely with Brendan and Andrea's team on is the next generation of the Uber Pool technology. That is what Innisfil Transit is currently powered by. It's been rolled out across the United States and Canada, and so we are now charting a pathway for Innisfil to transition to that just updated technology. The Uber Pool was it's not outdated, it's just newer and better, and Uber is always working to try and optimize things like route matching and efficient efficiencies. So that's what I mean when we say talking about new efficiency, new advancements in the technologies of the pooling technology that supports Innisfil Transit.
Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks very much for the presentation. Very well done. I've always been a supporter of Uber Transit. I think it's, to be picked up at your door within 5 minutes as opposed to standing on a cold corner. I grew up in Toronto, so I know what it's like to stand up in a cold corner for 20, 30 minutes waiting for a bus. So I think it's worked well for the situation that we have in Innisfil, but Innisfil's growing. We are now in a discussion in the future talking about where do we go? Can Uber expand and perform those duties as we move forward to a bigger population? So my question has to do with a discussion that's been going on with in Innisfil with residents, because we have some very, very strong opinions between fixed transit routes and Uber. And we've been discussing with a few people the whole idea around autonomous vehicles. And so my question is, besides the pool that you've just talked about, is there any opportunity for Uber to experiment with autonomous vehicles in Innisfil, or are we not large enough yet to try that? Thank you.
Councillor, thank you for your question. I don't know if I have the right answer to the autonomous portion of this, but I know that Uber Canada and Innisfil are always working on ways to pilot something new. One example is high-capacity vehicles. That's something that's been on the roadmap for Innisfil since we started this partnership, and something that Uber, both in the U.S. and Canada, is working towards. And of course, autonomous is always the talk of the future, and it really, it is here. How do we operationalize that? I think as Uber develops its strategy towards that, places like Innisfil, who again thrive on innovation and partnerships in that vein, would be part of the conversation. So something we can look forward to in the future. But hopefully that answers the question on the face of it.
Thank you.
No problem.
Other questions or comments? I just wanted to thank you for giving us that update, and we are going to be dealing with a report a little bit later in the agenda, a staff report to make some pivots with our system. One of the things I appreciate so much about Innisfil Transit and our partnership with Uber is that ability to change things quickly. I always think of it as being able to turn on a dime. And we did that during the pandemic. We were able to offer people free rides that you can drill right down to like a specific client or resident who needs extra help and make sure that they get a trip to the food bank, make sure that they get a free fare somewhere, getting people to their doctor's appointments, all of those things. And while every other transit in Canada really was bleeding money during the pandemic, we were saving money during the pandemic. And now you'll recall we had a resident named Jessica who came in front of us not that long ago, who was concerned about the fact that she couldn't take 2 of her children and herself somewhere. So in tonight's report, we are addressing that item. So thank you very much for that. The one nut we haven't cracked yet that we do hear from time to time is people with car seats, children in car seats, and that they aren't able to take a child in a car seat in an Uber, and just wondered if there's been any update on that. I know you're still working on it.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Mayor Dolan. With the car seats, we understand how valuable that service is. It is right now available in only a few large markets, most notably New York and Los Angeles, but it's something that we're going to take back to the team, and as you mentioned, we're going to continue working on and explore it here with the Uber Canada team. And of course, Innisfil's willingness to pilot things and just try things goes such a long way, so this is something we can take back to the team and report back to staff with.
Thank you. And then finally, we were getting some calls and emails about an issue with Uber Teen recently, and I got a big thank you today from a resident because we'd managed to fix that glitch with the issue. So I just love that we're able to adapt and when we hear about an issue, find a way forward with it. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Dolan. And there's an entire team behind me that supports Uber Transit, from engineers to our customer success team. So there's so many people that are dedicated to the public transit cause and making sure that this really works, because we understand how important a trip is. It really does matter. So thank you, Mayor Dolan.
Thank you. And so now I see no other hands, so I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the presentation. And I'll go with Councillor Waters and Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you again for
Thank
being
you.
here. Next item on the agenda is item 6.2, and I believe that's a delegation from the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 547. And Secretary Carleen Doyle, welcome.
Good evening through to Mayor Dolan, Deputy Mayor Fowler, ward councillors, staff, and Uber. Good evening. My name is Carleen Doyle. I am the branch secretary for Branch 547 in Innisfil. If you are not aware, we are located at 1017 Robinson Street in Bellewart. I'm here tonight with my colleagues, comrades, Mehdi Imatez, who will be presenting. Sam Stevens is a recent new member, and our president, vice president, and other members of our membership. Thank you for coming. I'm here tonight to request to include the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 547 Innisfil as a transit hub and as a $4 destination fee on the Uber Transit routes. The closest transit hub is Morgan Russell Memorial Arena Community Center. It's 2.2 kilometers. It's a 30-minute walk to our Legion, and there's limited street lighting. We believe the Legion would be passed on the route to the above transit hub, in many cases, a shorter journey. Adding our Legion as a transit hub would see increased visits and engagement from existing members, which includes many veterans and seniors, and the opportunity for new potential members and a wider community to visit. More visits, whether to activities or services providing health benefits, both physical and mental. Reduction in cost of getting to and from the Legion, for those on a fixed income, allowing more frequent visits. Provides an independent travel option for those who do not drive. During winter months and bad weather, our veterans and seniors do not need to spend time in cold clearing off vehicles, risk of slips and falls, and also it's a darker time of season. We believe in safety first. Increased access to our veterans, seniors, and youth programs without the need for supports and parents to provide support. Our facility is used by many nonprofit groups and do not have a home base, and they too could succeed more with members or volunteers who could like to join their event at our location. The town could use our facility for drop-ins and focus groups. There could be more community involvement with events that we run, like our Lefroy Family Day, which is in conjunction with many of our community partners, which I think some are here tonight. In recent conversations with a member, I found out that she was paying $14 to get to and from our Legion, when in actual fact, if our hub was on as a $4 destination route, it would cost her half that price. For her, a lower income would make it more possible for her to come and spend more time doing more senior activities, veteran activities at our Legion. I'll now pass it on to my comrade, Mehdi Imatez. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors, staff, and more importantly, Matt. Where's Matt? Hi. So Matt, I'm the Legion Service Officer for the Legion. I don't know if you're familiar with what we do here, but basically what we look after are veterans and first responders. And one of the things that we're trying to do is to get people over to that. So there is an age issue in regard to some of the folks that we need to bring over. There is an income issue that's involved there. And I think that, if your company could help us out in that by giving us a special cost for that particular thing, it'll make their jobs a lot easier. So I'd really like you to keep that in mind, because as I do my presentation to you, in particular, I'm sort of referencing you in the background, okay? So the importance of social interaction and mental health, both in veterans and in first responders. A very high suicide rate. So one of the things, the easiest things that we can do to help with that is social interaction. And social interaction is simple as, so every Tuesday of the month, we have a coffee chat where we invite everybody, regardless of whether or not they're a member of the Legion or they are just members in the area here, both first responders as well as veterans, to come in and have a discussion with their peer groups. And from there, we're able to help them, everything from getting them, let's say, hearing aids or dentures or something like that for some of our seniors that are entitled to this from Veterans Affairs to do this. But, one of the hindering points of this is having them come there. How do you connect and get these people over here to do that? So if we can spread that word around, if we can get that to come through there, I understand everything costs money. It's not a substantial hit on it. I think that from a costing perspective, we're probably maybe looking at maybe 100 to 150 trips at the onset. So, for staff to factor that in to see what that works out to, as a starting point, we'd see that, especially if we could get some sort of maybe financial relief on that from Uber to help out with those things happening, we can certainly do that. Because that is the major stumbling block that we have right now. We have people that literally try to come on a scooter in the winter from a distance that's, all the way from here where Sobeys is to where the Legion is. And that's quite a distance. And from a safety perspective alone, that's not a safe thing to be doing in the winter. If something happens, if batteries run out, and do that. But it shows you something. It shows you the importance that people have on trying to connect with their peers. And sometimes these are the only outings that they get. So mental health is a big thing that's there. The general benefits to caregivers who support them, a lot of times they're their spouses, or there might be children, as you are, like older children that they have there. It certainly would allow them some time off as well. And it would be helpful for them to be able to, okay, you know what, for the next few hours, this person is going to be there, they're going to be looked after, and they're going to be doing that. So I would like to, on behalf of the Legion, and as the Veteran Service Officer for the Legion, ask that you give this some consideration, and to see that if you can add this to the stop for Uber to drop off over there, it would go a long way at a very low cost to helping out a lot of members of this community. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for members of the Legion? Councillor Drodge?
Thank you, Worship. Thanks for the presentation. So we are having a staff report come C1 tonight on Innisfil Transit, and I was planning on pulling it to have some conversation around the Legion. So if you wanted to hang around, you can listen to that later.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? I just had one, and that is that it's wonderful to talk to Matt. It's council that makes the decision of whether or not where the hubs are, and it's the taxpayers of Innisfil that partner with Uber and help pay those subsidies so that residents can use the service. So I'm happy to have that conversation, and I really appreciate you coming out tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Seeing none, the recommendation is to receive the delegation from Royal Canadian Legion 547. And it's moved by Councillor Drodge and seconded by Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you again. We have one more delegation this evening, and it is 6.3, and it's from Ms. Arlene Huggins. Is Arlene Huggins with us this evening? Oh, Madam Clerk?
Thank you.
Oh, she's
Thank you,
online.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
And thank you, Council. I have a similar request in respect to the Uber Transit. First of all, I commend the town of Innisfil for this idea. I think it's brilliant, and it's been very useful. Personally, I have attended your council meetings using the Uber service, so much appreciated given that I don't drive. I wanted to speak to a similar request, first two requests. The first is I didn't see the YMCA location at 7315 Young Street in Innisfil on the hub as a hub in the report. I could be wrong or I could be incorrect. Maybe I'm misreading it, but I didn't seem to see that. And I wanted to suggest that that be added as a hub. You are all familiar with the YMCA services, but part of those services include outdoor education, health and fitness, employment supports, literacy supports, youth supports, and other varied community programs. And should be accessible to all individuals who reside in Innisfil. They're important services, and I think access to the YMCA services would be much increased if that was a hub. Even the programs, many of the programs are services for the community, especially those who cannot afford other services, including employment support services. But even the services that do cost a fee are well less expensive than some of the private clubs and other camps around. And I think would benefit the community greatly if it was a hub that youth and elderly and all of the community can access easily. So that was the first issue. The second issue is, and I heard the delegation of Uber, and I would say there's one exception to that, and that's the services to Friday Harbor. I live in Friday Harbor, and I've had conversations coming back from the Berrygo station with drivers who have indicated that many of the Uber drivers don't want to pick up fares in Friday Harbor. Friday Harbor is an integral part of the community. We pay our taxes and for services such as Uber, as with any Innisfil resident. And I think it's important to ensure that Uber does have the services to Friday Harbor. We want to be part of, and we are part of the Innisfil community. We want to access Innisfil shops. We want to go shopping in Innisfil. We want to go grocery shopping and other services shopping. We want to frequent the restaurants in Innisfil. And it's sometimes very difficult to do if you don't have access to a vehicle, uh, especially as Friday Harbor has grown since its inception. There are a number of people who don't drive and do rely on GO Train to get to Friday Harbor and to access the community, and it would be very helpful and convenient if Uber expanded its drivers to Friday Harbor to enable us to get to locations within Innisfil. I do think that the Go bus, Berrygo service is essential, and I'm glad that that is recommended in the report to be maintained for the next year. That's great. Hope it goes beyond that. I think the YMCA service, as I'm recommending, should be one of those transit hubs for the fixed, I think it's $6 fee. And I think that's a reasonable amount for people to be able to access the variety of services that the YMCA provides. Those are my submissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Huggins, for your comments. I'm going to make you very happy right away, telling you that the YMCA is a hub. It's actually a $4 hub. I think
Great.
it has been, and it's recommended to continue this evening. I think what might have been confusing in the report, it's called the Innisfil Recreation Complex and not the YMCA. And
Maybe that's what is the problem. So
yeah,
thank you very much. And I'm sorry if I wasted council's time making those submissions, but just to let you know, I think it's very much appreciated.
no, absolutely. And that also gives access to the Rizzardo Health and Wellness Center as well. And the Barrie South GO train station is recommended at the $6 fare. So I'll go to, thank you for your delegation. I'll go to members of council for questions or comments to Ms. Huggins. Seeing none, thank you so much for your presentation, and a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the presentation with thanks. Deputy Mayor Fowler, Councillor Zanella, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item 7, which is County Council, Municipal Associations. For this part of the agenda, any members of council who've been assigned by council to attend on council's behalf to different other organizations, this is your opportunity to say what you've been doing for those different committees. And I'm seeing no hands. Oh, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yesterday we were at County, and it was a rather busy day. We had numerous presentations. One of them being the It Starts campaign, and the presentation there, give a brief history of how it came to be and what they're looking to achieve, along with pictures, as we did council's doing today, for more localized versions of it. We also had another presentation from the Housing Attainability Supply Action Plan. They're looking at, they're not looking at subsidized housing, like affordable housing. They're looking at attainable housing, basically making housing more affordable to people in the community all across Simcoe County. So they're looking at things like base costs, labor, materials. They're looking at setting up programs and websites that they can gather the information together and present it to the public for those who are in need. Another thing we did was the waste audit results and status of organics capture. So this was where we take a look at the grand scheme of things, how much people are putting into the waste as opposed to the green bin, what we can do, the promotion of green bins to reduce landfill. Now, they're going to be returning back to County Council approximately in May, we're told, with a cost breakdown of a pilot project that we will be voting on to identify residents who don't use the program, so we can educate and target those that are using it less efficiently rather, so they don't even try. So this way we can speak to some people directly if they're not even bothering, or find out why they could have a composter in their backyard. They can make trips down to the organics compound themselves. They're looking at what they can do there. There was a lot of discussion around the tech versus the policing options we have. One of the discussions that came up that was brought up again was the idea that if your green bin isn't out with your garbage, that we won't pick it up, sort of idea. So that we don't want to take a stick approach. We want to take more of a carrot and educate people and incentivize it so that they understand the good they do for the community and how it benefits. More locally, recently we had the audit committee, and once again I'd like to thank Audrey Webb for the work that she does, making sure that all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, there's very few connections, and everything looks to be proper. Everything's accounted for, and there's no need for corrections at all, which is very good. Some questions came up regarding the tariffs. We were reassured that would be taken into account should it come down to any lines or accountability with the town, and that's pretty much it on my behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything from any committees? Seeing none, just to further the Deputy Mayor's comments regarding the green bin and why we're so, why we think it's so important that it's being used is simply because the County of Simcoe is running out of landfill capacity quickly, and nobody wants a dump next, or a landfill site next to their, or in their municipality. So the 24% of residents in Simcoe County who don't use their green bin, they produce or create 75% more garbage than someone who does. So in a current garbage can, when they did the audits, 46% of what was in the garbage can was organics. So we are trying to do the education piece, but it's not moving the yardstick very far. So it becomes an issue with capacity in the landfill. It becomes an environmental issue because organics is full of methane. Methane is 28 times more potent than CO2, so putting a lot more greenhouse gases into the air. And it's more expensive. We can save about, if everybody used the green bin, we could save about $250,000 a year in processing fees. So we're going to try to come up with a way to get that message across to people so that more people will take advantage of using the green bin and getting the organics out of our landfill stream. And then other than that, I did attend 6 hours of interviews for a new deputy chief of police position. So we're moving forward with that, and the process continues. And as our wonderful deputy chief is looking forward to retirement at the end of March. And seeing no other comments on anything, we'll move on, and we'll move on to our consent list. So what happens now is we have a list of many items and staff reports that council has all read. There's a recommendation from staff with each report. If council's happy with that recommendation, and we'll move forward to approving it at the end of the meeting, it won't need to be pulled, but if we want to have more fulsome discussion on items that are in the agenda, we will then pull it and have a more fulsome debate on it in the committee of the whole. So I'll start with item A1, which is the council meeting minutes dated Feb 12th. The summary report of the Electoral Engagement Committee, which was a meeting on February the 3rd. I just wanted to comment, I really like the tea with the trustee idea. I thought that was a really good idea for those. This Electoral Engagement Committee is about trying to get more people to run for, not only more people to run in the election, but more people to vote in the election, as we had such a poor voter turnout in the last municipal election. So that group is working hard on that. Item B2, the Innisfil Heritage Advisory Committee meeting. Councillor Drodge.
I'd like to pull that to the committee of the whole, please.
Thank you. Item C1, the Innisfil Transit 2024 results and updates. Councillor Drodge.
I'd like to pull that to committee of the whole, please.
Thank you. Item C2, the overnight parking restrictions update. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I don't need to pull it. Just a question on if this does get approved, how that will be communicated. Is we did have, I had a few residents that were interested in seeing those changes happen. So just in how we get the word out.
Mr. Harris.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Ices. If approved tonight, we will take steps to notify the town through our social media channels as well as the website updates.
Thank you. I had one question, but I am in support of this change as well. I think it puts us in line with other municipalities in the area. And for those who maybe haven't read the report, this is the overnight parking restriction for the winter. And right now it's November 1st to May 1st, and this would change it to November 15th to April 15th. So shortening the time of the year that people could not park on the road overnight. My question, Mr. Harris, is if we have a significant weather event, and maybe we need the cars off the road in the daytime, can we actually, is it only at night? Well, when I read the report, I thought it said we could only not have cars on the road at night. Is there a possibility to also have them removed during the day?
Through your worship, great question. So this report speaks to the overnight restrictions. We do have language in the bylaw that speaks to interfering with snow clearing operations 24 hours. So we still have the ability to respond to those concerns where we have operational concerns of vehicles blocking snow plows.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments on item C2? Seeing none, thank you. We'll go to item C3, the water and sanitary sewer connection policy amendment. Deputy Mayor?
I'd like to pull that, please.
Thank you. C4, the automated speed enforcement update. Councillor Ices?
I'd refer that to committee.
Thank you. That takes us to items in D. So we have the housing needs assessment and draft affordability housing strategy. If somebody would pull that for me, I just have a number of questions. So thank you, Councillor Zanella. The next is a staff report on the annual corporate policy update. D3, the single source procurement for the Orbit Stormwater Master Servicing Plan. Deputy Mayor?
I'd like to pull that, please.
D4, the building permits issued in the Q4 of 2024. Just one question on that. I guess this means no Building Faster Fund money for us this year. Director Lee?
Unfortunately, no, Mayor Dolan. We have not achieved our 80% for the past year.
Thank you. D5, the municipal law activity update. I just had one question on that as well. Mr. Harris, sorry, you just sat down and got comfortable. I just wondered on the parking ticket payment piece that it talks about in the report. We currently, you can't get, if you don't pay if you have outstanding parking fines and you go to renew your driver's license or renew your plate, you can't unless you pay up your parking fees. And that's kind of been how it's been, but now there's no fee to get a license plate. So how does that work, and has it impacted whether or not people are actually paying for their parking tickets?
Through your worship. So the province did transition to an automated license plate renewal with no fee. The plate denial program is still available to us, so we still do apply outstanding fees to plate denial. And what would happen is a vehicle owner that has fees would have to pay those before the renewal happens. So for most of the time, if you don't have any fees, that renewal would be automatic. If there is fees owing, one of the fees being parking penalties, that would have to be paid before the license plate is renewed.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. In your opinion, do you think the average person is aware of that? Like, would they proactively pay their, has it shifted how much, what our arrears in parking fees is?
Through your worship, that's a good question. I think there is still some misinformation on the plate renewal and that fines can be impacted with that renewal. We're still early in the AP program to look at the fine revenue from the plate denial program come in, but we're happy to continue to look at that and see what those changes are.
Thank you so much. Item D6 was the customer service Q4 2024 report. Seeing no questions or comments, just a great big thank you to Lisa and her team who do such phenomenal work at the front lines. For people that are maybe not happy about paying their property taxes, and you always manage to handle all those complaints with a big smile. So thanks to that team. Then we go to bylaws. We have one bylaw, which is to dedicate assumed lands for Webster Boulevard. Then we have F, which is our council discretionary grants. There's two, one for Sick Kids Charity Hockey Tournament and one for the Simcoe County Bursary Program. Then we have F3, which is Township of Oromadante's, a copy of their resolution regarding amalgamating LSRCA and MBCA, the two conservation authorities. Councillor Waters?
I'd like to pull that.
Thank you. And then we have items G, which is correspondence for information. So we have the BWG Innisfil Police, that should say police, not policy, Services Board, dated December the 19th. We have a proclamation about Amyloidosis Awareness Month, March 2025. We have a proclamation for the It Starts, which is also March 2025. And we have no notice motions, which notice has been given. And with that, our consent list recommendation with the items that are being pulled. May I have a mover and a seconder, please, for that? Councillor Zanella, Councillor Waters, all those in favor? That is carried. So now we'll rise into committee of the whole, and I'd ask for a mover and a seconder to rise to committee. Councillor Constantine, Councillor Richardson, all those in favor? That is carried. Now we'll go to the business items. The first one was B2, and that was Councillor Drodge.
Thank you, Your Worship. My seconder is Councillor Ices. So I just wanted to start off.
Sorry, just if I could interrupt you just for 1 second, Councillor Drodge. Clerk Toma?
Through Mayor Dolan, Councillor Drodge, did you wish to start off with the recommendation that was originally presented? Or did you wish to present a revised recommendation?
So I guess I'll start off with providing a revised recommendation, and then I can speak to it.
Thank you.
So then I guess my revised recommendation is the summary report be received from February 6th, and that council states to not intend to designate the property municipally known as 5633 County Road 27, and that council approve the demolition request for the property.
Thank you. So we've had a revised recommendation put on the floor and open for discussion. Councillor Drodge.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I just want to start off by letting everybody know that the Ontario Heritage Act nor the town requires the submission of a heritage impact assessment to demolish a listed property. And given the short time frame to consider this demolition, it would likely not fall within the 60-day time frame to which it needs to be done. This property also does not fall in the Heritage District of Cookstown, and it is not inside the HDC Heritage District of Cookstown. I also think the associated costs with such an assessment would create a financial burden to the owner. It's also my understanding that the heritage evaluation criteria, it's also from my understanding of the heritage evaluation criteria, I am not convinced that if this was challenged that it would hold up in an appeal. Finally, my other comment would be that the property owner can't prepare this land for farming this spring. There would be additional financial implications for them. My understanding is that they already have crops planned for this location. So for those reasons, I would like to request my recommendation.
Thank you. Did the seconder have a comment?
Thank you, Worship. I guess I would start out saying that the Heritage Committee does have a real difficult job when it comes to preserving heritage properties in the town. And so I understand there would be some conversation about this property. In the report, it does spell out a compelling story about people who live there, the history of rural Innisfil, farmers of Innisfil, and I'm thankful that that story is documented and we have that. But I do have issues with designating this property as a farmer, and as a property owner, we are asking quite a bit of these residents to preserve a property like this, and we have no tools to force that to happen. So what we find is demolition by neglect. I also note that the outbuildings in the barn were also considered to be designated, and the barn and the house are mostly wood construction from more than 100 years old probably, and there's just, nature takes its course. I think if you look at the report on the house, the safety concerns over the lead and the asbestos, I'm not sure you're going to have a willing participant in preserving that. As far as the attributes of the buildings, from my perspective, I don't see any historical attributes that you would preserve in these farm buildings. It's aluminum siding over a wood frame. We're not noticing any unique stonework or anything unique historically. So for all those reasons, I support Councillor Dodge's revised recommendation on this item.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments on this recommendation? Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to clarify something for the rest of council. This was not a decision that was made as a snap judgment. There was a lot of debate and discussion during the committee meeting. We understand the situation, how it comes across. We're not looking to ramrod anything through, but there's an old saying, you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And the idea behind this, the reason we did this was we're trying to preserve as much of Innisfil's heritage as possible. As the history grows, as the town grows, the history is going to be absorbed. Houses are going to be moved, houses are going to be demolished, things are going to be wiped off the map, things that are 200 years old. So we're put in a difficult position, as Councillor Icy stated, of trying to find that balance between moving forward and teaching about the past. So we couldn't get there wasn't enough time for a heritage impact assessment. We couldn't formally recommend one. It would be too late by the time it came back to council. So it's not done with malicious intent. It's not done with a heavy hand. It's just the idea that we're trying to preserve as much as humanly possible moving forward before it gets lost in the reeds. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Then I'll call the question. All in favor of the recommendation on the screen? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next is item C1, and that is Innisfil Transit. It was pulled by Councillor Raj.
Thank you, Your Worship. I pulled this just simply to add a friendly amendment, if I could. And basically, it is to have staff come back to council with a recommendation to include Innisfil Legion 547 as a hub for Uber.
Thank you.
And sorry, my seconder was Councillor Constantine.
Councillor Constantine is the seconder. Okay, so questions or comments on the recommendation that is on the screen? I had just one question, or actually it's more of a comment, and that was reading the report and in talking about the people dissatisfied with the pooling and the ride-sharing piece of it. And I don't have a lot of sympathy for that, because if you had a regular fixed transit system, you have to go way out of your way to get to your final destination, not just a kilometer or two, like way out of your way. So I still think it's worth, and it saves money for the program, and it's better to have full cars than empty cars. And I can also support the making the GoGo technologies equal to the rest of the program as well. So I just wanted to make those comments. Seeing no other comments or questions, all those in favor of the recommendation that's on the screen? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry I missed. I didn't see your request to speak. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have one question regarding page 4 of the report, the pilot voucher program for Cookstown and Friday Harbor. If I can get some clarification on that. It said that we initially put this into play to assist families getting into Lefroy and getting out of Lefroy. The reason I got this brought to my attention was because of the hockey families that live in Cookstown. It takes no time to get up to Morgan Russell Arena, but then getting back to the library in Cookstown was an issue, or the students who are working at Tanger Outlet Mall, that was an issue. And it says here that I'm looking at the status here. I believe it was till September 2024. Can we extend it at all by any chance until the master servicing plan comes back?
Mr. Correa?
Through you, Mayor Dolan. So we did take a look at that voucher program. The concern, I guess, in terms of 2025 would be the financial source of funding, as we would not be able to rely on the gas tax reserve. So it will have financial implications if utilized as we would anticipate. So the idea was this voucher, among other potential scaling up of services, would be studied further through the transit master plan exercise and then implemented as part of the short, medium, and long-term recommendations of the 10-year transit plan. So tonight, staff aren't recommending that voucher be continue for 2025, but we are looking at that voucher in particular, among other alternatives to serve those communities.
Just so for clarification, because it's not very clear in the report, it is being continued further for 2025, so it is, or it is not, because...
So just to provide clarity, it's not to continue for 2025 based on this report.
Okay, that's what I was just looking, because when you mentioned it just now, you mentioned 2025. That's what I was asking. Okay, that being the case, would we have a general ballpark timeline on when the master servicing transit master plan will be coming into play?
Through you, Mayor Dolan. So we anticipate bringing forward the transit master plan in Q4 of this year.
Okay, the reason I ask is because, again, we're talking about Friday Harbor, we're talking about the outskirts of Innisfil, and where, like we had the lady come on this due delegation today stating that she wants to get down. Getting into Innisfil is very simple. Getting to the Morgan Russell Arena is very simple. Getting to the library is very simple. Getting to the locations that are centralized is not the issue. It's the additional cost of getting out. It's a one-way trip that they can use that costs them at a higher exponentially higher rate when they leave. So it's kind of, I think it's kind of imbalanced in that regard. If we could keep something, like if there's a way we could find, it bottlenecks the people in, and it costs them more. So you have the sports families, you have the seniors, you have the young people that are looking to get to work. Like, these are issues that are arising because we're saying, hey, we'll get you there, but getting back is going to cost 2 or 3 times as much.
Mr. Correa?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Dolan. Just one point of clarity. If you're traveling to or from a hub, it is subject to the fixed fare. However, if it's anywhere else in town that's not included in our hubs, that's where it's only subject to a $4 discount. So if it's a two-way trip and there's within the hubs from either to or from the destination, it is subject to the hub fares.
So what I understand is that someone coming from Cookstown to the Morgan Russell Memorial Arena gets the one-way fare, but going back, I'm hearing stories of how they're not getting that same fare back to, like, for example, the Cookstown Library, which for a temporary portion of time, we had the vouchers for. So getting them, for example, getting a 14-year-old, 15-year-old into an Uber out to a hockey game, and so we could, or a practice or an event or a tournament, and then saying, okay, then getting back is a different story. That kind of, am I misunderstanding this?
Go ahead, Mr. Correa.
So through you, Mayor Dolan, so we have had issues where the correct fare does not show up, and we've had to give money back through Uber, and so we've looked at that on a case-by-case basis. It's possible that that's what happened in certain circumstances. My understanding is that it's traveling to or traveling from the hub, it would be subject to a fixed fare, and if that's not happening, then I would encourage the resident to reach out through customer service, and we will look into that on an individual case basis.
Thank you. So just to be clear to the Mrs. Huggan, who it's delegated earlier, so if she's leaving Friday Harbor and going to the Innisfil South GO train station, it would be $6 fare because she's going to a hub. If she's leaving the South GO train station and going to Friday Harbor, it would be $6 because it's coming from a hub. Is that correct? And regarding the voucher program, it ended in September, so 5 months ago, and I haven't had one call from anyone suggesting that they were upset that it ended. So that would be my comment on that. Other questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. Just a question I have on the subsidy. Considering that we're going to be moving or we're going to be progressing to a different system over the years as we grow larger, it's probably going to be based on how much we subsidize our current transit system. So my first question is there for a larger city or a larger town that has fixed routes, what is the standard subsidy that is paid to their transit system?
Through Mayor Dolan, I kind of want to maybe take that back and I can perhaps provide a little bit more numbers. I think every geography is a little bit different. I do recall as part of the 2-year budget that was recently considered by council, we did provide some statistics in terms of costs. They generally are in the vicinity of $1 million for similar municipalities, but if I can take that back, I can provide a bit more tangible numbers.
Thank you. And part of that question was, is that when we started the program, subsidy was in the neighborhood of $5 per ride, and now we're up to $10 per ride. Not that I objected. I just want to know why is it costing twice as much now than it did when we initiated the program?
Through you, Mayor Dolan, over to Councillor Waters. You're correct, and you'll see in the report the subsidy costs have increased as riderships increased year over year, and proportionately it has increased as well. So staff have been exploring, why is that the case? What the data does suggest is that year over year, trips to hubs, for example, Barrie South GO, among some of the other hubs, continually increase in terms of the percentage or the proportion of the overall amount of trips taken. And so it's the hub trips, whether you're going to Barrie South GO or Town Hall, those are the ones that have the most subsidy from the town, whereas any other trip is basically $4 off the total cost. And so, for example, actually, Barrie South GO is probably the best example. In 2023, just for context, there were 23,527 trips taken from Barrie South GO and 21,634 taken to. That's 2023. In 2024, there were 36,048 trips taken and 34,887 trips taken to or from. And so that's a massive increase. And when you look at the hub subsidy, for example, Barrie South GO is approximately a $17 subsidy, whereas other hubs are a little bit less, in the vicinity of maybe anywhere from $10 to $14 per trip. And so as more trips are happening to the hubs, it does drive up sort of that per capita cost. And so through the Transit Master Plan, we are looking at that, as we do see that as potential inefficiency, looking at solutions and looking at, as things evolve, as we work towards getting our own GO station in town, like what can we do to keep the overall per capita cost down, or at least stop them from increasing year over year. So that's something we're exploring. But my understanding of why the data suggests that the subsidies are higher this year than last is that proportionately more trips are going to hubs that the town subsidizes more than any other trips.
Thank you very much for that answer. I guess I was half expecting that because we have pooling now, that the costs may have not come down, but would have stabilized as opposed to continue up. So that's why I asked the question, because I thought the pooling would have dropped the cost per ride because you have more than one person in the vehicle. So that's why I was getting it. But thank you very much for your comment. It clarified the whole situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. It's a very good question, and I think we should be looking when we get the master plan done, the transit master plan, is, what is the subsidy of our transit versus other transit? And I think you'll be surprised to find we're getting very good value for money compared to some fixed route transits that are operating in the vicinity. And that was one of my I kept bringing up at every one of the open houses for the transit, is that people understand that there's a cost for building a hockey arena or there's a cost for paving a road. People don't see that there's a cost for a transit system. They believe that the money they put in the fare box, the advertising, and the provincial grant funding that we get covers the cost of the transit, where in fact, there's not a single transit system in the world that even breaks even. So if you look at even the City of Toronto with the TTC, it's the police and the transit are their two most expensive ticket items in their budget. So getting that picture and finding out every time somebody gets on a Barrie City bus, how much subsidy are the taxpayers paying for that person in that seat? And we can get other examples as well. And it helps inform your decision, because if you just say to somebody, where do you want transit? You want it everywhere, unless you say, where do you want transit at a cost of, $200,000 per year per bus? Then you might give a different answer, understanding that money's coming out of the property tax dollars. So I think that's a very important piece of the conversation when we're talking about any kind of transit, Innisfil transit, fixed route transit. Councillor Ices?
Thank you, Worship. Maybe on a different note, I'm not sure if I see in the report, Innisfil is going to get some service from the county transit, the Lynx bus. How will the Uber be integrated with that? Or will it?
Mr. Correa?
Through you, Mayor Dolan, to Councillor Ices. So it does speak a little bit to that on page 4. The county did receive funding and are working on the route design for really the first County Links transit route that will start generally in north-south, starting at Barrie South Go and making its way through Innisfil, looping at Bradford Go. So the final design is still at the staff level being worked on by the County Links team in consultation with staff, and they've reached out with some preliminary ideas. Now, and as just mentioned, the Barrie South Go is a hub already, and so there is that interplay between how you can get there and then how you can utilize a fixed route service. And certainly that's one of the concepts that we're examining further through the Transit Master Plan exercise.
So when we think about a subsidy for a trip, what is the cost of the Lynx bus per trip? Is it like $3 or something like that?
Through Mayor Dolan, I believe it's $2 or $3, and I can look online to confirm. I believe it's $2 to $3.
So as taxpayers, we've got that bill as well, right? That's our county representatives have to tackle that one. But I guess if I wanted to go to Collingwood using transit, I could pay $6 to get to the Barrie Go, and then another $3 on the Lynx, and for $9 I get a ride to Collingwood. So that's a pretty good deal.
Thank you. That did spark one other question regarding the Lynx. The preliminary route that I saw at the county, mind you, this was a long time ago, had it going down the 10th. I just wondered, I don't know whether the county, acknowledges the volume of people at Sandy Cove that don't drive. And if there was a way to have that Lynx bus somehow go through, or at least go to Lockhart or the entrance to Sandy Cove at some place, just a thought.
So through you, Mayor Dolan, the route has not been finalized, and staff to staff, we can take that feedback and ask those questions prior to finalization of that route.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Great discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much for being here this evening. The next item was the water and sanitary sewer connection policy, and that was Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Worship. I'm not looking to get a secondary. I'm just looking to ask a question regarding the matter.
Yeah, thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. Do you have a seconder? And then I've asked...
Councillor Drudge.
Thank you. And I actually did ask staff if we could pull this tonight to just make sure that all of council has a really good understanding of this new policy should it pass. So go ahead and ask.
Thank you. I'm looking at the report currently, and I'm looking on page 2, the connection fee for the lateral and the main. They're removing, it appears that they're removing the ability to pay for the connection at the time of ownership change. I'm wondering what benefit that has, because when we have a situation like Killarney Beach Road where we put down the water main and everyone's literally been affected by this, some more positive, some more negative, and then we say that, okay, you know, if you want to defer the lateral and you want to defer the the connection, you can do so. So when you sell the house, you're actually getting an income, like you're getting the money for the house, so you can put it towards the connection fee for the new owners. Why are we removing that option? I don't understand the benefit of it, because ultimately we're growing at such a rate that the connection fee for houses, you're forcing that upon people, or at least the laterals, with saying, you know, you got 3 years and then you got 10 years you can put it on your taxes, or after 3 years you can pay it in full. That's your choice. So we're kind of imposing the laterals on certain people, and I don't understand what the thought process is behind that.
Ms. Crane, did you want to start?
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor Fowler. So the intent behind the connection fee with this policy amendment is to make the connection fee only due at the time of connection. So the current policy speaks to, regardless of whether you connect or not, that connection fee would be due with accrued interest at the time of ownership change. So the growing concern that staff has been faced with is, as these infrastructure costs grow and interest rates grow, we are now looking at the time of ownership change for unmanageable payout opportunity for residents.
So this is actually a good news story, Deputy Mayor. So if you think of dividing it up into 3 pockets of money. So the first pocket is the lateral, which is the smallest amount. The second pocket is the connection, which is a large amount. And then the third pocket, which the town really doesn't have anything to do with, is all the work you'd have to do on your own property to actually hook up, you know, either decommission your well or decommission your septic system and have the pipes into your house and all that. So other than get a permit, we have nothing to do with that piece. We have the lateral and the connection. So what if this policy passes, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Crane, that there would be a requirement to do the lateral and pay for the lateral, which is the small piece, and that would, you'd have a 3-year window of opportunity to know about it, so try to save up for it. But if you couldn't, and it was still a financial burden, you could put that money on your taxes over 10 years to pay for it. You could pay for it early if you saved up enough. You wouldn't have to be over 10 years. You could pay it off early, but you can book that over 10 years. What the big change in this policy is that I was really looking forward to is the connection. If you don't want to connect to our water or to our sewer, you don't have to. And when you sell your house, they don't have to. So if if you don't want to, and then 35 years from now, a new resident, their well goes dry and they want to hook up to water and it's there, they have the opportunity then to hook up and pay the connection fee of the day, whatever that fee is. But it just takes away that requirement to have that kind of onus of having it on the title, so that you are, staff are having to track all of that. It's basically, once you decide that's what you want, if you want to hook up, then you hook up. If you don't want to hook up, you don't hook up. Am I right, Ms. Crane?
Yes, that's correct, Mayor Dolan.
Does that help? Do you have more questions, Deputy Mayor? And Councillor Drodge.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And specifically the residents of Lefroy, I think this is a great feel-good story, because they are constantly complaining that they're being forced at some point to hook up to our town water. So I think the residents of Lefroy are going to be thrilled about this.
Any other questions or comments on this? I just want to make sure, because this has been confusing for a long, long time, and confusing for council who lives with it. So you can imagine how confusing it is for the residents to navigate this. So I just want to make sure that all of council understands it and is able to communicate it to residents when they call you, when they get their letter in the mail. Quite often they'll call you. So I just wanted to thank staff very much, because I think this really makes it much less complicated for everyone and much less financially burdensome. And, we were at the point before where you weren't kicking people out of their house, but if you were on a fixed income and water was going by, it was a stressful situation. So putting the lateral in the ground, I think, is really important. The last thing you want is, doing a whole new nice road and then having somebody tear the road up to put a new lateral in every week and creating a mess. So having the laterals there for the fee of the day is good. The only caveat I would say is we would never force anyone to hook up unless it was a major environmental concern. So you have the ability to hook up to a sewer, you don't want to, your septic is failing, you're on like Simcoe, there would probably be an order on your septic if it was failing and a requirement to hook up. But other than that, we're leaving it up to the residents and not penalizing them because a pipe is going by their house. So I'm wholly in support of this. I think it'll be a lot less burden on staff to control all of this and the costs. And also, I think it's very fair for our residents. Councillor Constantine?
So there was quite a few in Lefroy that didn't want to, but they had to. What happened to those people?
Ms. Crane, what will happen to the people on Killarney Beach who may have misunderstood and thought they needed to pay the full amount, and if this passes, they aren't required to?
Great question, Your Worship. So if given the opportunity for this policy amendment to be approved, staff do have a plan to pivot our communication to the affected residents to let them know if you have previously made a decision committing your property to paying the connection fee either through your property taxes or upfront, you now have the option to opt out of that decision.
Did you hear that, Councillor? Okay, Councillor Waters?
Just a question for those people who are choosing not to connect, and we're saying that they never have to connect, who picks up the infrastructure costs? Because that's what the connection fee is for, is to pick up the cost of that infrastructure that's going in the ground. So who's paying for that infrastructure if we go past 5 houses and none of them are willing to pay? Who pays for that cost of that pipe in the ground?
Ms. Crane?
Yes, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Waters. So the infrastructure itself is paid through that mandatory lateral cost. So you are required to pay for the actual pipe that's in the ground. The connection fee isn't really due until the time of connection because that's when the capacity is actually committed. So we aren't really allowing for that, cost until it's actually committed.
Okay, so lateral is paying for that piece. Okay, thank you.
So the connection cost really is like the development charge. So you're paying for a little piece of that water plant, you're paying a little piece for that operator in that water plant, and all of that piece that you hook up to eventually. And the only other caveat is, right now in Killarney Beach, I think the connection is 12,000?
15.
15. So right now, the connection fee in Killarney Beach is 15,000. If you decide 10 years from now you want to hook up, it could be 25,000. It's whatever the cost of the day is that you would have to pay. Any other questions or comments on this piece? This is great. This is such good news. I'm so glad to get this put to bed. It's been very confusing, and it's great that staff are going to reach out to those folks in Killarney Beach and make sure that they all understand completely what the decision they're making and why. So thank you for that. All in favor of the recommendation? I'm going to put up 2 hands for that one. There you go. Thank you. That's carried. Next is item C4, and that's Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Constantine is going to second me on this. So I pulled this item. There's a lot of interest in this item. I'm sure as you drive around the province, there's a lot of signs going up saying municipal speed cameras in effect. And so I'm happy that Innisfil is proceeding with that as well. I guess my first question is maybe about the policies around how we choose where to put these cameras. As a councillor, I think one of the biggest issues that we get called on is traffic, and it's difficult to have a tool to address that, and I'm excited to see this as a tool to help with that. So maybe we'll start there. How do we determine where we're going to put these cameras?
Director Bowman.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Ices. We are governed under Ontario regulation as far as where we can put those automated speed enforcement cameras. So that regulation tells us that we need to place them within community safety zones or school zones. But even with that said, we know that some of those zones are maybe less conducive because of road geometry or because of just what we see in speeding patterns. And of course, we have other tools as well through our traffic calming pilots and other tools that we can deploy as well.
Thank you. The other thing I noticed just driving around Cookstown today, there's signs already saying speed cameras coming. I assume there's some rules around how those signs are deployed as well. Maybe you can fill us in on that.
Through you, Mayor Dolan, the same set of rules also governs how we deploy and signage that must be used. So this program is for traffic safety. It is meant to be transparent, and part of that process is posting coming soon signs 90 days in advance of a camera actually coming to an area. So it's not meant to be a secret. We share this information on social media. We ensure the signage is there, and only after 90 days can we actually place the camera.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments on this item? Councillor Waters.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Pertaining to the 3 options that were in the report in terms of who can do the program, so we talked about sticking with Barrie, we talked about some of the other options, Brampton, and the other one I can't remember. Yes, Sessa, thank you very much. by the end of the report, it sounds like we're sticking with Barrie, even though we've been having ongoing problems with Elevate. So my question is, why are we choosing to stay with them?
Through your worship, happy to answer that question. We have seen, so you mentioned Elevate, that is the camera provider, and we have had early struggles with them as far as technical glitches and providing good customer service to the town, their client. We have seen some improvements there. There is a new client manager who is now servicing our joint processing center and us as a client, and they are being more responsive, and we have not had the same technical issues. So we're seeing that improvement, but there's two other pieces to that as well. One, I think most importantly, by continuing with LAS, we are able to synchronize all of our current and future AP programs by creating a center, a sort of a one-window center within the town of Innisfil to process future administrative penalties. So we're talking about ASC tonight, but we also are thinking a bit more broadly about red light camera, about the bylaws that also use an administrative penalty program, and in the future, there will be fire. Innisfil Fire and Rescue can have administrative penalties used as well. So by choosing that, we are also choosing to streamline and kind of elegantly create one solution for multiple issues that we see coming.
Thank you. Another question. Is Elevate the only company that will integrate into that? Or are there other camera companies that can fit in if we have ongoing problems with them?
Through your worship, each joint processing center chooses to work with one camera company. And so if you choose to go with that joint processing center, you're also adopting their camera provider, which they have gone through the procurements to bring on board. So they're creating a package because there are systems that have to be synchronized with that joint processing center. So whether you go with Brampton, they have a partner, or the Township of Essa, they have a partner, you have to choose the two together.
Thank you. So I guess my comment would be is that it seems that the reason we've had issues with Elevate is because do they have an office in Ontario, or because it's an American-based company?
Through your worship, that's actually one of the other improvements that we're expecting to see. So we have been informed that they are hiring a local technician, so we won't have to incur the costs and time delays of bringing someone in from out of province when we do experience technical issues in the field.
Continuing along that vein, sorry for considering the current environment around tariffs and Buy American, do we have any policy in Innisfil around Buy Canadian, whether it's a service or a product?
Mr. Gershaw, go ahead.
So I think the short answer is no. There is a long answer that goes with that really gets into the legal framework around procurement, which gets complicated quickly and begins to involve consideration of things like international trade treaties and other legal frameworks that essentially prevent a lot of municipalities from taking a Buy Canadian approach. I'll just say on that topic, especially in the context of recent developments with the United States, groups like the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities are closely studying those questions, as are a number of larger municipalities. So I can say there's a very active conversation underway in the municipal sector about that issue, but at the present time, I think the short answer is no, we can't Buy Canadian.
I kind of expected the answer you gave me because I am familiar with it, but my question, I often hear that Americans can state in their purchasing policies, Buy American. And when we're talking about our friend, the president down there, talks about reciprocity in terms of we want to be treated how they're treated, how are they allowed to say Buy American and we cannot because we've signed the same international legal agreement?
Thank you for the question, Mayor Dolan. I think we're potentially drifting away from automated speed enforcement in our conversation, but I would highlight that despite are many similarities, there are some key differences in the American legal framework, and we probably have to delve into that to really answer your question comprehensively.
I realized I was drifting, but it just kind of one led to the other, and I had to get the answer. Thank you.
Other questions and comments? I'm sorry, Councillor Zanella.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're hearing a lot of cash grab, cash grab, cash grab, and we wouldn't be grabbing your cash if you weren't speeding. So I want the residents to know, and they'll see this, that the money that we do get, the revenue, is going back into transportation and safety. So at the end of the day, you're probably saving somebody's life because we're going to be able to put more into transportation and safety. So I'm glad to see that, and I hope that people understand that. So it's not like we're just taking your money and doing anything with it. It's going back into that fund that is going to help us do better things for ours and make our roads safer. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Well said, Councillor Zanella. And I would say that success in this program would mean we don't get a cent. That's what success would look like in this program. It's working so well in other municipalities. I'm amazed at the drop in the 85th percentile of the speeding in different sections where this is happening. And I think that getting that, that speed down is so important, especially in our school zones. I have very little sympathy for anybody who says to me, I'm very upset I got a speeding ticket when they're going by a children's school. And community safety zones, and those are the only places they can be. So when you read comments on social media that say, well, I need one on my street and I need one on my street, they're not allowed on any street. They're only allowed in specific areas. And, you know, school zones and community safety zones are some of the most vulnerable areas in our community. And I look forward to seeing not how much money we've gotten. I look forward to seeing how much we've slowed down the traffic in front of our schools. Anyone else? Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the recommendation? That is carried. And next we're on to item, the staff report for the housing needs assessment. Thank you for pulling that for me. Then you second it, Deputy. Thank you so much. So my question around the, first of all, I thought the housing needs assessment, extremely well done, well needed, really helps understand our needs. The draft affordability housing strategy is the one I'm struggling with. I'm wondering why, like when you read the report, you're 3/4 of the way through it before I read the word county. And when I think of affordability housing, we pay the county to do that for us. And you heard the deputy talk about the county's also implemented this new housing attainable supply action plan. So they're working on this, a strategy for attainable housing, and their affordability, the county's affordability strategy is finished, and they're just renewing theirs for the next 10 years. So help me understand how this isn't a duplication of effort, please, Mr. Carrera.
Through you, Mayor Dolan, it's an excellent question. I mean, I guess what I would say is there's no one tier of government or one player who is going to solve the housing crisis that we're within, and certainly do agree and concur that the county is the housing provider. And really, this work's meant to supplement and implement housing ASAP programs and to really ask the question from a strategic perspective, what's the role of the town? So the idea is not to duplicate what the county is doing, but either implement or contribute to, whether it's from a funding incentive or any other way. What's the role of the town is really what the strategy is aiming to look at deeply.
Thank you, because when you looked at some of the strategy, things like the CIP, it were very similar to what the county is looking at for the Housing ASAP program. And And I will tell you, I asked the same question at the county yesterday, saying, you're working on attainable housing strategy. How do you do that when we have control of the servicing? It's different at a regional level where, you know, because you want attainable housing, you need higher density, you need pipes in the ground. And they're working on that in isolation of our servicing capacity. So I guess my point, the point I'm trying to make, I'm making it longer than I need to, is how do we meld these two together to get the best out of both worlds, to get the best program at the county and the best program here? CEO Gershow?
If I could just respond to that comment. I mean, I do think it's an excellent point and one that we'll take away in terms of that coordination with the county. I want to bring council back to when the county was here before you presenting on affordable housing not so long ago. They talked about the spectrum of housing affordability and how many different types of housing we're actually talking about, which in many cases might involve market housing, you know, developed and delivered by private developers. And I think that's an area where we as a lower tier municipality maybe have more room to influence through our planning policies, through CIP programs and so on, so that the county can focus on the more deeply affordable types of housing. We may have more ability to influence more market rate housing and making that more affordable or attainable. So that's to me the way to think about the alignment of our two efforts.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have I have a question and a comment. I'll ask the question first of all. It talks about town-owned lands. Do we have an inventory of town-owned lands? Because I'm under the impression we don't own very much. I know one big piece of property we own, so I'm just kind of curious, is there other lands that we own that I don't know? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Dolan, to Councillor Waters. No, Councillor Waters, I don't believe there is, but part of the strategy looks at, again, coming back to what's the town's role, and certainly the discussion with the county is if we owned lands, we'd have opportunities that we could partner with the county, partner with others for some of the priority populations that we need to provide housing for. So the strategy looks at the potential for land banking and trying to secure properties that meet our needs over the longer term to provide those types of priority housing.
Okay. My other question was, or comment was, is that I often read reports like this, and they're always full of really good ideas and ambitions, and you know, but if I don't see targets in them, if I don't see anything that we can judge ourselves by, it's a report that just language, it kind of, I read it, it's gone. I'm never going to hear about it again. So my question is, I know this is a county responsibility, and when they did do their presentation, they did talk about numbers and that kind of stuff. But in this report here, there's no numbers. How are we going to get there? How are we supposed to judge how well you do? That kind of stuff. We don't have any targets in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Lee?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. So certainly, Councillor Waters, one of the things that we've been discussing as staff in terms of looking at the draft affordable housing strategy is ensuring the practicality of it. So not, you know, it needs to be visionary. It needs to look at how do we look at doing things different to ensure we are providing for those priority populations that we're not currently doing. But it also has to be practical and achievable over the longer term. So it is a draft document right now. We're sharing it with you as we, you know, are really just starting the official plan review process. The housing needs assessment is based on a snapshot in time of a number of years ago. So we're going to continue with new census data to evolve that information and sort of look forward on more of those achievable numbers. So what are we trying to achieve with each of those recommendations that's in the strategy as that document comes forward to be finalized? And potentially, whether it's in the strategy, it may be in official plan policies as well, that there's more of those details that we're looking for. So it'll be a combination of the documents that come forward to council for consideration before the end of the year.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no other questions and comments, all in favor of the recommendation? That is carried. Next is item D3, and that's Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Constantine's going to be my seconder for this. I was reading through the Orbit single source procurement document report, and I see a lot of positive energy come off it. I see a lot of positive reviews from Aquifer Beach Limited regarding the matter. We're talking about an RFP that's almost $400,000, $386,496 plus HST. There's mentions of cost savings under continuity and consistency regarding the fact that they're knowledgeable in the region and what they've done, the work they've done previously with the town. But my question is, was it such a strong connection that it superseded an open bid? Like, I'm just wondering why we went with the sole source when we could have, there's other people that could have come up. How much extra would it cost? Because it was saying as well that the single sourcing has no impact on the project budget. So would opening it up to a bid to other companies, would that affect the bottom line to such a degree? Or is something, I'm just looking to get the mentality behind the single source itself, beyond the fact that they've been there before, they know the area. How much of a cost would it be to offer it openly to other people in the process?
Director Lee.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Dolan, to Deputy Mayor Fowler. So I think the way staff looked at this, Deputy Mayor Fowler, is the Aquifer Beach Limited did the town-wide stormwater master plan and flooding strategy. And essentially, when that work was being done, it did not consider the specifics of the Orbit lands. Similar to what happened with the transportation master plan that looked at a very high level at Orbit, but Orbit was being dealt with separately through a separate procurement process. And what the town has done in the last year is essentially integrated those into those broader master plans. So In Services is completing the water and wastewater master servicing for the Orbit. Burnside, who did the town's transportation master plan, is now completing additional addendum work to fill in the Orbit, and Aquifer Beach was retained to complete the rest of the environmental assessment work and the stormwater specifically to Orbit. Aquifer Beach, it made sense to use them. There is a long background of data and information that they have in terms of the entire town-wide. How does stormwater work? What are the flooding? So having all of that knowledge of the town-wide approach, staff were of the opinion that it was appropriate to have them then continue to sort of fill in the Orbit hole in that document and continue forward. And that's why we went through the sole source to move that project forward. Not doing that would have delayed the timelines to sort of complete the work for the Orbit area specifically, because somebody else would have to get up to speed with all of that knowledge that they already had on the town-wide approach and all of the modeling information and data analysis that they had done town-wide.
Follow-up?
Thank you. So what I'm understanding is because they've done the work on the lands surrounding the Orbit, to offer it to multiple companies would delay the Orbit itself in the long run, and as they have the documentation and the information of how the work within the Orbit would be affected by that outside which they already had the information from, would slow everything down and cost more in the process.
Deputy Mayor, that's correct. So delay the timelines, and because any other consultant would have had to have gotten up to speed on the work that was already done over a number of years by Aquifer Beach on the town-wide document, that would have all factored into the cost of another consultant finishing the work specifically for the Orbit area.
Thank you. So yeah, they're halfway done just by what they've already done in the town. But the only other point I wanted to make was this isn't a property tax impact. Director Lee, who pays for the Aquifer Beach work?
So Mayor Dolan, the work is being funded through an Orbit capital project. All of the planning applications that are reviewed on that are paid for by the individual developers, but the capital project is the town's capital project.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. And that takes us to F3, and that's Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. Normally, we don't pull any of the items that are in the F series, so I wasn't too sure I was even allowed to pull it. So I'm glad I had the opportunity at least to address this. Now, this is a letter that's...
You do have to get a seconder, though.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Drudge. Yes, I did. I heard him in my left ear here. I just forgot to mention it. Thank you. So I wanted to just to ask a few questions pertaining to this request from Oro Medonte. And basically, as a member of the Nottawasaga Region Conservation Authority, they've asked that we consider merging Nottawasaga with Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority for efficiency purposes. I find it absolutely amazing that one municipality can now force all of us have to consider this, and I'm a bit concerned that where this is going to go, because I want to make sure staff, I want to have a clear idea, what are we asking staff to come back to council to tell us? So I want to clear that issue up first of all. What are you going to come back and tell us about this particular item here?
CEO Gershaw.
So thank you for the question, Councillor Waters. I think where I would start is acknowledging that what is happening is indeed exactly what the Conservation Authorities Act contemplates, that any one member municipality can indeed set in motion the process that Oro Medonte has done. So this is how it works. And so it was discussed, for example, recently at a meeting of county CAOs, many of whom are affected by this process, either by virtue of being in the LSRCA or the NVCA territory. So I think there is a lot to unpack here. Procedurally, things are pretty clear because the Conservation Authorities Act sets out a process. It sets out how the meeting is convened. It sets out how many votes each member municipality has at that meeting to decide the question. It sets out a process where the minister has to subsequently ratify and approve the decision made at that meeting. So procedurally, it's relatively clear how this will pan out. But to your question of, what will we be coming to council with, we haven't totally figured that out yet. But I can say we've begun that conversation internally, and I would expect that we will bring a staff report to council with some advice and considerations that should inform, council's position on the issue. And I guess it's our view that it would be a good idea for council to give its position and give some direction before that meeting takes place, because Innisfil will have 2 representatives at that meeting when it's held. It hasn't been scheduled yet, and we believe it's best for council to give some direction on how that shakes out. So we're still working through that.
Okay. Before I go on my list, I just want to give the opportunity to Councillor Ices and Councillor Drudge, in terms of, since they are members, whether or not they have anything they want to say before I go into my bit on mine, because sometimes I can go on.
Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I serve as the council rep on the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority Board. We have a board meeting coming up this Friday where obviously this will be discussed. So from that board level, we haven't even gotten to the point to discuss Oro Medonte's motion. At the board level, we are in a bit of a transition phase. Our CEO, Doug Hevner, has just recently retired. So the board's actively looking for his replacement. So I think I can read between the lines that some of this discussion is kind of intertwined with the transition that NVCA is in. I think maybe they saw it as an opportunity. Again, I'm speculating, but I will keep staff kind of informed of what happens at that meeting to maybe help them come back to council with a report on what we as council want to see with regards to this issue.
Councillor Drudge, anything to add?
No, pretty much, I agree with you completely. We found out kind of at the end of the meeting, so the motion was the Wednesday before the LSRCA met, and the Oro Medonte representative kind of told the board that that motion had been put on the table, but there has been no discussion whatsoever, and unfortunately, we're meeting every other month, so I'm not going to meet with the board till the end of March. No, sorry. Yeah, end of March.
Go ahead, Councillor Waters.
Thank you. I just want to give them an opportunity to provide any other information that might be helpful to staff. Just in case I don't get a chance to talk to staff, I just want to point out a few issues that I have with this. Is that it seems to be a knee-jerk reaction in terms of an issue with the CAO stepping down and maybe a budget request that came from Nottawasaga being a little higher than most. But my concern here is that they've made a request for a merger between two specific conservation authorities. Now, if they just said, we'd like to merge Nottawasaga with another one for efficiencies, I would have been a little more okay with that. But the issue here is they've requested Lake Simcoe, which is a large conservation authority that has huge responsibilities because it manages 18 subwatersheds around the lake, including the lake itself, including Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. So they have a huge amount of responsibility, and they're now being asked. They didn't ask for this. This is coming from Oro Medonte to now merge with Nottawasaga. So I think it's going to take their focus off of what their job is, which concerns all of us here in terms of the protection of Lake Simcoe, because now they have to look at another large watershed, because Nottawasaga is a large watershed. And it doesn't even flow into Lake Simcoe. It's a completely different watershed. It flows into Georgian Bay, not Lake Simcoe. It's a river watershed as opposed to a lake-based watershed with a bunch of tributaries that fall into it. So they're completely two different animals in terms of how you manage them. So it requires a different skill set in terms of how you do this. And so I think it's going to be a distraction for Lake Simcoe to manage a watershed like Nottawasaga. And Nottawasaga also has its own pristine environment in terms of the largest wetland in Ontario, and that's the Ministing wetlands. So it requires a lot of work there. So I'm really quite concerned that these are two different watersheds flowing to two different separate bodies. Now, if they had suggested maybe the Conservation Authority on the other side, which is, I think is Saugeen, I can't remember the full name of it, but no, it's not Saugeen Shores. But anyways, there is another Conservation Authority that if they had said there's another Conservation Authority that's of equal size where they could both benefit from efficiencies that both flow into Georgian Bay, I might have had that opportunity. So I want to make sure staff understand that in response to this, they should be looking at that aspect as well. Is Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority the best partner for this to happen? As far as I'm concerned, if I had the opportunity to turn this down right now, I would do that because I think it's a waste of your time. But I want to give you the opportunity to come back and participate in the whole process. So I think it dilutes the mission of Lake Simcoe, and it has a lot of work to be done. I think funding and voting, in terms of when you start combining Lake Simcoe with Nottawasaga, you're looking at York Region, which has umpteen different members, versus Oro Medonte, which has a couple. We have a couple. There's a whole voting in terms of how you create a board around that, and then that board sits in Newmarket, not in Blue Mountain, not in Wasaga Beach, not in anywhere in Oro Medonte. It's down in Newmarket. So I think there's some issues there. So I have some real issues with it. There's also a budget, like Lake Simcoe is 3 times the size in terms of its budget. So I think not only will it dilute Lake Simcoe, I don't think Nottawasaga is going to get the attention it deserves as well. So somebody will tell you that there are many conservation authorities that look after various watersheds. Toronto Region Conservation Authority looks after 9 watersheds, but they all flow into Lake Ontario. It's not 2 completely different bodies. And, they're all river systems will flow into a lake. We have here a lake-based conservation authority with a bunch of sub areas around it, and a huge river system, completely different conservation authority. So I really want you to make sure that when you come back to us, that you take that into consideration when you're looking at, is this the best pairing? Personally, I don't think it's worth your time. However, I'll allow you to do your work and come back to us with it. But I just wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to spew all that and get it off my chest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. CAO Jershow.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I'll just respond briefly to Councillor Waters' comments because they are well taken, and we will need to do some work on this. I think we owe Council some advice, and a question, a proposal has been put on the table that we all need to consider. But I can tell you that right off the bat, again from the county CAO conversation, we're all in the same boat. Of having to do that kind of analysis. So I expect there to be some collaborative work on figuring it out together. And I think when we do come forward, we're going to do our best to answer or advise thematically on those different considerations. Is amalgamation actually a good idea? I mean, that's the basic question. So whether that's from an operational perspective, like actually doing what conservation authorities do, from a governance perspective, as you mentioned, from a budgetary perspective, I mean, those are the themes we'll try to explore. I can pretty much guarantee we will not have answers to all those questions. It'll be difficult for us as Town of Innisfil staff to answer all those questions, and that's where I might even say to the board members, it's a question to put to the CA staff members, what analysis can you provide to inform this debate that we all know is about to unfold? Are there opportunities for efficiency, or would it actually be worse? So the expectation I've heard recently is that the meeting where this will be decided will be later rather than sooner, meaning like late spring as opposed to in a few weeks, which I think, from my perspective, is a good thing because it'll allow time for that dialogue to occur and for that information to be shared. So I expect we'll bring you a report that touches on those themes. We'll do our best to speak to them, but we may not have complete answers. We'll need to do our best.
Thank you for that. And the other conservation is Gray Sabo. So much more in common with Nottawasaga. So I would at least like to put that seed, plant that seed in terms of taking a look at it as a different partner than Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. If partnership is the direction that everyone wants to go, they think there's some savings there. So I just want to plant that seed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. I appreciate that perspective from the watershed perspective. From a perspective of municipality, for the town of Innisfil, selfishly, the majority of our land drains to the Nottawasaga watershed. The majority of our assessment is in the Lake Simcoe watershed, but the vast majority of our land actually drains to the Nottawasaga. So, selfishly, from as far as efficiency, it would be for us to have one conservation authority instead of 2. There might be some advantages for Innisfil that way, but I totally get the fact that one's the river-based system and one's the lake-based system. And then the only other comment I would make is, as chair of the South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Committee, the 3 partners in that organization are Lake Simcoe, who takes the lead, Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, and the Severn Sound Environmental Association, which is an SCA. And the 3 of them do work together really well. So I just wanted to add that perspective, but your points are well taken. Other questions or comments from anyone? Seeing none, it's going to be a rocky road or a tumultuous road, I would imagine, but we'll make our way through it. All those in favor of the recommendations? That is carried. Next is the RISE recommendation. Please, mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Fowler and Councillor Ices, all those in favor? That is carried. And consideration to adopt the recommendations from Committee of the Whole. That would be moved by Councillor Waters and seconded by Councillor Zanella. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, we go to announcements. Oh, sorry, notice of motions and then announcements. And I'll go to Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I had the pleasure of attending the February Innisfil Historical Society meeting in Churchill this month, and it was one of those days where it was storming pretty good out, and so it was really interesting to be in a group who had some history behind them, and so I asked one of the attendees there, you know, what's a year that you remember that where it snowed this much, and it was Bill Kell. I don't think he'll mind if I say his name. So he had a really good story. He said, well, 1946, I think, is when it was similarly like this, and the town didn't have any equipment like we do today to move that stuff, but they did. I think they bought their first bulldozer, whatever that looked like, in 1946. And even with that advanced technology, they couldn't push the snow down the road. So they had to go across ways on the road, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, to, and I think he was referring to the third line. So you can imagine how well that worked. So if you didn't have the opportunity to live on a road where this bulldozer came, you were stuck there for 6 weeks. So as I reflected on that, I wanted to thank Nicole and their team and the snowplow drivers for all the hard work they've been doing this month, and maybe if residents hear that and they think about complaining about it when they've taken an extra day to see the road plowed, that's a lot better than 6 weeks. So that was very, very interesting meeting. Moving forward, on March 1st, this week coming up, there is a She Rose Gala put on by the Innisfil Indian Association. I believe that's being held here from 12 to 4. So you can look to attend that. That's been an annual event that celebrates some of the women in Innisfil. The Innisfil Spartans are in the midst of an intense first round playoff series with the Stainer Siskins. Currently, it's 1 win apiece. They're playing in Stainer tomorrow night, and then they come back to the rec center here on Friday, February 28th for Game 4, and then if the series goes that long, hopefully they'll win it by then. But Game 6 will be here as well on March 4th at 8 p.m. So those are my announcements.
Thank you, Councillor Ices. You're braver than I. I didn't venture out to go to that Innisfil Historical Society meeting, and the roads were just too scary. Councillor Constantine, nothing? No. Nothing? Okay. Councillor Richardson?
Coming up this Saturday at the Lakeshore Library is the Making Change Presents Radiant Roots. It's on Saturday from 10 till 3. And then also on March 18th is a teen volunteer info session at the Lakeshore branch. It's from 3:30 to 4:30. So all those teens that need to start worrying about getting those volunteer hours to graduate, if you're looking to graduate, you can pop in then on the 18th for an information session about how you can get volunteer hours through the library.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the Lions Club, we have on February 28th, Euchre Night. And then on March 2nd, we have Kids Bingo. So that's at the Lions Club. And then last week, the Polar Bear Dip saw 98 people jump in. I was not one of them. And if those people enjoyed it so much, they can go to Friday Harbor this weekend and do it all over again. 2 weekends now, sorry.
Thank you so much. Councillor Zanella.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On March 5th, Wednesday, March 5th, new line dance classes start at Lakeside Dance Studio.
Thank you. And Councillor Drodge.
Thank you, Your Worship. On March 1st, at the Cookstown Library branch, there's a seed packing party from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And on March 1st and March 2nd at the Grange Hall, they are doing a vendors event with baked goods, etc. It's from 9 a.m. to 2:30 every day. And I don't know if everybody knows or not, but my daughter is jumping with ex-councillor Nickel next weekend at Take the Plunge at Friday Harbor, so they are looking for donations. And I hope people can attend and watch her jump in.
Thank you. I have donated for that. And Councillor Drodge, I just wanted to point out there's lots of pancake suppers in your ward next week, too. I'll tell you all about them. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Recently, many members of council gathered at the Cove for the Caring with Cards campaign. It was a lot of people from the community. It was organized by Officer Elizabeth. I believe it's her second year doing so. Many of us walked through the knee-deep snow, knocking on doors, or leaving little packages with tissues, crocheted hearts, hand crocheted. Imagine how many people got a hand crocheted heart and how long it took to get them. That's incredible. For one or two people to do so, it's phenomenal, along with the cards that were made by the students. And we crossed paths a few times going through Sandy Cove, and it was incredible to see, the day before Valentine's Day, people light up when you just show a bit of compassion and kindness. It's a phenomenal feeling. On March 5th, the town of Innisfil is holding a public open house for the community planning permit system and the official plan review at 5 p.m. Everyone's welcome to come, say your piece, let everybody know what you wish done with it or what you approve of or what you don't approve of. And lastly, on March 10th, we have Ramadan celebration from starting at 6 o'clock in this very chamber. It's really good. It just shows the diversity that the town is growing with. It's incredible. So this is something that I'm looking forward to as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor. Actually, it was Officer Elizabeth's mother who crocheted every one of those hearts that she gave out. And it's the 5th or 6th year that that's been going on. And it's very, very much enjoyed by the residents at Sandy Cove. So I think most has been covered. I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow is the provincial election day. So if you haven't voted in the advance polls, please go out and vote. On Friday, the Nottawasaga Futures is putting on the Ag Knowledge Forum, which is a forum for agriculture, and there's going to be a vendor event there, and I'm going to be attending that. Happy International Women's Day to all of the women and those that support them. And there'll be a Mother-Daughter Empower Conference at the library on March the 9th. I want to add my thanks to Councillor Ices to all of the hard work that the ops team has done and the customer service team to support them throughout this incredibly crazy winter season with the wind and the back-to-back snow. Received an awful lot of emails and phone calls. Many of them were grateful for the work that's being done. Some of them were critical, saying that only Innisfil was not plowed, everywhere else was plowed. So I was interested to get a phone call from a friend of mine who lives in New Tecumseh, who was asking, could I please reach out to the mayor for her because she thought she'd been forgotten because her road hadn't been done in 3 days. So I want you to know when you get those calls that it's not the case and that I thought we did quite well, not having to declare a significant weather event until well past most municipalities did, and very happy with the amount of effort that the team had put in. And as February comes to a close, I want to, that means our winter weekends have also come to a close. So I want to thank staff for putting in all the extra effort to entertain folks in Innisfil throughout the month, the weekends in February, and it was very much appreciated. Staff and community partners working together really is the recipe for success. So thanks, everyone. That's the end of my announcements, except to thank everybody for what happened tonight. And you got to meet my granddaughter, which was lovely. So thank you for that. And yes, then we're looking for a confirmatory bylaw and adjournment, please, at 9:24 p.m. Councillor Drodge and Councillor Richardson, all those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you in